after 3 terms representing Assembly District 91. State Representative Dana Wachs, a Democrat from Eau Claire, is running for governor. Let's ask him why. Dana, thanks for coming into Wisconsin.
Well, thanks for having me, Steve.
Why are you running?
You know what? Regular folks haven't had a voice in our Capitol building for quite a while. I'm positive that I can be that voice. I've been an advocate in the judicial system for regular folks for 32 years. I have been involved in politics as a volunteer for virtually all of my life. Actually, since I was age 10, my mom made me lick stamps for Hubert Humphrey. And I've really been involved as a volunteer most of my life, darn near all of my life. And I'm positive that I'm the best candidate in this race. I can unite Wisconsin, I can bring people together, and I'm going to be an advocate for regular folks in the Capitol.
Has there ever been a governor from Eau Claire? I should know that.
I don't think so, actually.
Okay.
But there's fixing to be one.
Well, the governor, you saw the tweet. He's warning about a blue wave on November 6th. What signs? Do you agree with the governor's assessment? There's a wave coming. Is that the noise we hear in the distance? And
well,
what signs do you see?
Well, I'll tell you, people have had it. For years, I've gone grocery shopping with my wife, and I try to go to grocery shopping now in Eau Claire, at Woodman's in Eau Claire, and I'm often stuck at the door for 45 minutes to an hour talking with people. People are pretty darn sick of what's been going on. The roads are crumbling, the teachers are moving to Minnesota, wages are falling, the middle class is shrinking. There's a lot of dissatisfaction out there, and I think that Governor Walker senses that too. And I think we've seen evidence of it with the Dallas election recently as well.
Okay. And your party going to win Senate District 1 and Assembly District 42?
I think so. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic and hopeful about it. I think that's probably why the governor was refusing to hold these elections. I think all signs are positive, and I think that we've got a bounce in our step. They don't. We do. And I think that's a darn good thing to have at this point.
Okay, let's return to some of those issues one by one. Let's talk about highway funding. What would be in your first budget as governor to pay for our highways? Would it include tolling?
You know, I looked at tolling once. The problem with tolling is that, you know, my initial impulse on tolling was perhaps we could have a toll at Hudson and at the borders of our state, but you can't do that. The regulations and rules require that once you do tolling, you have to have tolling throughout the system. So I'm not for tolling because I think it'll have an untoward effect on regular folks. It'd be very expensive for them. But Governor Walker commissioned a study in 2011 that outlined, I think, 26 different options in terms of funding options. I can tell you this, we're going to re-index the gasoline tax. That's the first thing that's going to happen.
Okay. Are we going to raise that gas tax?
Well, we're going to have to take a look at it and see how this budget works out. But we're going to re-index it for sure. And we got to look at the study that was done in 2011. Governor Walker did none of the recommendations. So why did you have the study in the first place if you're not going to do anything? I suspect it was a stall tactic. We've got to do something. The other day at an event up north, a woman came up to me and she said, you know, in England, they drive on the left side of the road. In Wisconsin, we drive on what's left. And I think that message is getting through to people, and people have, you know, they've had enough of this.
You and I have been paying $75 a year to register our vehicles since 2008. Is it time that goes up?
Well, that's one of the recommendations in the 2011 study. It's registration fees, excise taxes. There's a myriad of different options in there. We've got to explore these things, and we've got to bring interested people and entities and groups to the table to talk these things through. I'm very concerned, though, that whatever we do, it must not impact people trying to get into the middle class and people in the middle class. We must be sensitive to the economic needs of our people. That's something that's been lacking with the Walker administration, and that's something we're going to have in my administration.
Right now, 22 or 23% of transportation fund revenues go for debt service. What would it be at the end of the first Governor Wachs budget? Well,
we're going to have to dig down deep on this. There's a tremendous amount of bonding that's been going on. I don't have an answer for that today. But you know, we have resources. Governor Walker's proven that when he's committed $3 billion to this Foxconn endeavor. You know, the takeaway from that, the major takeaway from that, is that we have money. It's just that he's committing the money to corporations and corporate welfare. He's not committing or investing it in our people.
You're an attorney. You serve on the Economic Development Corporation Board. You've seen the contracts. You've read the fine print with Foxconn. What could you as governor Could you renegotiate them? Could you tear them up, as some candidates have said? What would be your position now that the state has contractually entered into these arrangements with Foxconn?
You can't just tear up a contract without falling into breach of it by yourself.
Okay.
I think the functional reality will be that they will breach it, and at that point in time, that's when we can renegotiate.
Do you think they'll miss the jobs targets, or do you think they will run afoul of the environmental changes? How do you expect Foxconn to breach it?
I'm very concerned about the environmental impact. I'm very concerned about all of this contract. Frankly, I've been fighting this Foxconn contract since it came out. It came out about a week later when I got the fiscal documents and reviewed it. I immediately went against it because this contract is huge. We're spending $3 billion on one company.
That's just the state share.
That's the state share.
Excuse me for interrupting.
That's right. That's correct. It's actually $4.47 billion, I believe, altogether. $3 billion of state money and $1.47 billion in municipal and county money. And we're investing that in a company that's buried deep within one industry. Functionally, we're making that company too big to fail. It's a very dangerous, to invest that much money in one company, I think is a bad investment. There are environmental implications. There are economic implications. You look at the experience of Foxconn in some other states, often the high-paying jobs go to Taiwanese nationals who are over here on visas. I'm not, the Taiwanese are fun, nice people, I'm sure, but they're not Wisconsin residents. And if we're going to invest $4.47 billion in one entity, then you got to have more safeguards in terms of making sure these high-paying jobs go to Wisconsinites. We introduced 21 or 25 amendments on the floor to try to modify this contract. That really kind of outlines our take on it. We're certainly for creating jobs, but at $270,000 per job at least, with no guarantee that we get our money back, this is too much.
Well, play it out. The election is November 6th. Foxconn is going to be building. They'll be breaking ground on a facility. They may have 200 or 300 jobs in Wisconsin. If you're the governor-elect, are you going to ask to speak to either the CEO of Foxconn and say, and tell me what you would tell she or he?
I am going to have a dialogue with those people. You can be sure of that. If I'm the governor-elect, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about things, and we're going to talk about it face-to-face and heart-to-heart, because this is a huge, it's the largest investment in the history of the United States by one state. Now, Alcoa in New York was a substantial investment as well, but a lot of that came in electric subsidies for the power. This is the most expensive deal that's ever done. And think about the magnitude of this, Steve. Just think about it for a minute. If you took $3 billion and invested that $3 billion in startups, new business ventures in Wisconsin, you could have 10,000 new businesses with $300,000 of subsidy per business. And that would be spread across 72 counties, not just buried in the southeast corner of the state. 72 counties of growth. And we have, if you go to danawachs.com, we've rolled out a very aggressive startup business plan. We want to create 10,000 businesses in Wisconsin. And we've got a very specific plan as to how to go about it.
Should Kimberly-Clark get tax jobs credits for keeping 600 jobs in the state, Representative?
The Kimberly-Clark situation, it depends on what the value of that is. It just depends. I mean, it was one thing when Governor Doyle came in and helped with Mercury Marine. Mm-hmm. That was about 1/10 of the investment that per job that Foxconn is. I think it was $27,000 or $24,000 per job, that kind of investment. And you look at the history there. Mercury Marine is a long-term company that's been in this state for many years. That was a good investment. And it was a didn't cost the state anything close to what's going on with Foxconn. Should we step in and try to help businesses if they're struggling and they're about to leave? It depends on the situation. There's no carte blanche, yes or no to that answer. But Kimberly-Clark has also been here for a long time. And, to be able to sit down and talk with those folks in realistic ways. But to just carte blanche say that we're going to give them the same deal as Foxconn, it's just way too expensive.
Tell me what the first Governor Wachs budget would look like on K-12 funding and school choice.
Well, we're gonna do our darndest to fully fund K through 12 schools, and we're
Would it
going to do our
include-
darndest. I'm sorry.
Would it include, excuse me, would it include a new funding formula?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Here's the deal. The way I see it, education is one of the two most important things that the state does. Number one is health care. I think we need to create a Badger Care buy-in plan. We need to obviously take the Medicaid money. Governor Walker's turned down $1 billion of Medicaid money over the course of his tenure. That Medicare money could have, just by saying yes, we may have been able to create 10,000 jobs in the medical field. So, A, healthcare is critical. It's absolutely critical. We're going to deal with that. B, education is paramount. If you invest in education, you will create entire new industries, not just new jobs, but entire new industries. You go to places like Eau Claire and see what software company called Jamf that's spun out of the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, and look what that's done for Eau Claire. And you look at Skyward in Stevens Point, and you look at Epic here in Verona. These are the things that investment in education can bring you. These are the things that we need to do in terms of investment. I mean, General Electric is moving from Connecticut to Boston. Why? To be closer to the 26 universities that are doing cutting-edge research. Private industry gets it. They understand how important education is. They get it. It's not just new jobs, it's entire new industries. Why doesn't Governor Walker understand that? I don't know. He's been cutting university and technical school budgets. We're going to turn that around.
You've seen the estimates, the cost of choice. I think it's more than $240 million when you include the property tax, the shift. What would your budget do to choice, which is now statewide?
I do not like the voucher system. I never have. I've never understood why it's constitutional in the first place. I've got to look at that very closely. I'm not, at this particular moment, not committed to tell you exactly what we're going to do with it, but I do not favor voucher schools, not at all.
Well, it's grown from Milwaukee to Racine statewide. Would you try to dial it back, at least statewide?
Absolutely, because if you take a look at what's going on, you can see pretty readily that what we're doing is subsidizing folks that don't need the subsidy. You can see that, in some of these schools, you see the Mercedes-Benzes and the Beamers rolling up, and in some of those families are getting these vouchers. This is, come on. We got to care about regular folks. We've got to care about people that are trying to get into the middle class and people that are in the middle class. We're in a race to the bottom in jobs, in pay in Wisconsin. And you don't have to look far to see prosperity.
I want to go back to health care.
Yep.
Who would be eligible under your Badger Care buy-in?
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got to make sure that everybody has health insurance in Wisconsin. We're going to make sure that, we improve exchanges. We're going to make sure that part of our senior care package is to enable folks that haven't quite gotten to Medicare level that they're able to buy in. So we've got to carefully review this and make sure that as many people as humanly possible get health insurance in Wisconsin. And those that can't afford it are going to get it.
As governor, would you send National Guard troops to the border of Mexico?
No.
And the reason is?
Well, this is a stunt. This is a political stunt for President Trump. And much of what President Trump does are political stunts. And if given the choice, I don't want to participate in that at all. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, we're going to have a military parade now in Washington, D.C. at the cost of millions of dollars for what? And we're going to send troops to the border to stop imaginary crossings. I mean, it's like this caravan that's coming up. That caravan comes every year for specific points they're making. It's points they're making. It's not literally coming across the border. So I think this is nothing but a stunt. And I certainly don't. I'd have to look at the law exactly what the president can order a governor to do. Right. And I have not analyzed that. But if given a choice, my druthers is absolutely not.
What should the minimum wage be in Wisconsin? Dana?
$15 an hour.
And starting when? It'll
be put in effect over a 4-year period of time.
Okay. I've been to your website. You talk about the
You like
need.
it?
Oh, it's like every other candidate's
And it's
website.
DanaWachs.com for those folks out on.
But here's where you're more specific. You're more specific on gun laws.
Yes, I am.
Ban on the sale of assault weapons, including AR-15s, mandatory background checks, 48-hour waiting period, closing the gun show loopholes, a ban on bump stocks and high-capacity magazines, no fly, no buy, requiring firearm dealers and sellers to securely store all firearms. Which of these changes is most important? If you got one, which one?
I think the first and most important one would be background checks. Good, solid, cohesive, in-depth background checks. But I'll tell you what, I'm not a stranger to this issue. You can Google my name. I've been writing op-eds about this for years. Even when I was in the city council back in Eau Claire, I was very hard on guns. And here's why. I've been a hunter and a fisherman my whole life. I've been deer hunting since I was actually 10. I had to carry a BB gun for the first 2 years because my dad had to make sure that I knew what I was doing. I was taught very specific rules about what to do and what not to do with weapons. These are not toys. These are very serious things, weapons. If you need an AR-15 to hunt deer, then you need some target practice, and you need, this is a weapon of war. It is not a weapon of hunting. I've gone to gun shows and I've had these discussions with folks, and most of them agree. We can deal with gun safety without harming hunting in any way. And as a hunter, I would not have any kind of, I'm not going to go against the Second Amendment. Okay. And we don't have to, but we do not need assault weapons in our society. We need to bring back that 48-hour waiting period. Gun show the gun show loophole needs to be closed and the like.
Do we need to arm Wisconsin teachers?
No,
we do not.
It's ridiculous.
How would you change the $100 million school safety fund if you were governor? Would you recommend? It's now law. The Attorney General setting up rules and rules to govern how it's going to be spent. How would you tweak it in your first budget?
Well, first of all, the governor, we need to invest in education in the first place. Having more psychological services and the like in schools, it's a good thing, but it shouldn't be a special session to bring these things about. These are good things overall. But we're not going to arm teachers. That's ridiculous. And what we are going to do, though, is we're going to bring back collective bargaining so teachers are able to have a stronger voice in the workplace.
That's my next subject. So okay, let's talk about Act 10. You say on your website, which, yes, I've gone to, that you want to restore collective bargaining by public employees.
Absolutely.
Do you want the other half of that? Do you want them to continue to pay what they're now paying for health care and pensions? Are they paying their fair share? Do you want to dial that back too?
These are things that are going to have to be worked out in the collective bargaining process. What we need to do is make sure that people are getting good compensation. If you want a robust economy, you've got to make sure that the middle class has disposable income and that the middle class is growing. Right now, Wisconsin is the third fastest shrinking middle class in the United States. We're right behind Louisiana, and I forget who's number one in that horrible category. But we've got to make sure that the middle class has resources. It's the middle class that does the buying of houses, the buying of cars. It's the middle class that powers and generates a robust economy. Part of that, the calculus in that, part of the calculus is to make darn sure that people like teachers are able to get good compensation in the workplace, and to make sure that we roll back things like the right to work legislation and the prevailing wage legislation. This funnels money into the middle class and generates an economy that's robust and works for everybody.
So you would seek to overturn, I'm sorry, let's talk positively. You want collective bargaining back for public employees?
Absolutely.
Okay. And you're going to study how much they should pay for their health care and pensions?
No, I think that's part of the collective bargaining process. Teachers and folks went in.
Are they paying too much?
Well, off the top of my head, I'd have to look at exactly what group you're talking about.
Excuse me.
But in the private sector, people are paying, for retirement benefits and health care and the like. But it's part of the collective bargaining process. They need to be able to sit down at the table, look across the table, treat each party with respect, and work through these issues, issue by issue. Sometimes people take less hourly pay, as teachers had done historically, in order to get more benefits like retirement and health care. This is all part of the collective bargaining process.
Wisconsin leads the nation in incarcerating African Americans. Would you try to change that as governor? And if so, how?
Absolutely. Number one, I'm very pro drug courts and alternative courts. These drug courts and alternative courts, frankly, I think a decade or a little longer than that ago, Milwaukee and Eau Claire County received federal grants to study these programs. It's got to be two decades now. And they're very successful. You're able to treat the underlying substance abuse problem. You're able to treat the problem that brought the person into the system in the first place without taking them out of the community, without taking them away from their job, without taking them away from their families. Now, obviously, violent criminals need to be, we need to have prisons. But you look across the river in Minnesota and look how much fewer, much fewer they have people incarcerated than here in
I
Wisconsin.
think it's about 1/3. Excuse me.
Roughly about a third, yeah. And it's over $36,000 for each person that we put into prisons. Just on an economic basis, we should be doing alternative courts. But it's more than that. It's more than an economic issue. It's a human issue. Why are we tearing families apart? Why are we not studying the underlying problem? We've got to think about people. Policy in this government needs to be about people.
Two of our prisons, Green Bay and Waupun, built in the 19th century. Do we need to close those and build a new modern prison? Do we need a new prison?
Well, we've got to study this. I'm not prepared at this moment to commit one way or the other on that. But okay. You know what? I have toured prisons, and I've looked at these facilities. And you look at the stories that are represented by the people in there. I remember touring the Stanley Correctional Facility with some judges and some other legislators, and we sat and talked to some prisoners they're training dogs. They train dogs for a year and a half, and then the dog goes off to become a seeing eye dog or things like that. Mm-hmm. And I looked. I mean, there was a gentleman, a tall gentleman, who was staring at this black lab, and I'm a black lab fanatic. And he was just staring at this dog while all these presentations were going on. And so I asked him. I said, "What does that dog mean to you?" And he said, "You know, this dog is the first thing that's ever loved me."
So what's the name of your own black lab?
My dog is Artie.
Artie?
His real name is Artichoke, but he prefers Artemis actually, and he's my hunting dog. We do a lot of grouse hunting and pheasant hunting, and he's often complaining to Dad about how poor a shot I am, to be quite frank.
As governor, would you seek to repeal the photo ID law?
In terms of voting?
Yes,
is that what you're talking about?
I should have done more.
Absolutely. I think we ought to have a program where people are automatically registered when they turn 18. We got that for the draft. That's what we need to do, and I think we need to take a look at things like vote by mail. I mean, this is, we want to have a republic, a democracy that everybody can participate in. The more people that vote, the better. The more they're vested in our Wisconsin that we love.
Your website talks about student debt. Would you favor a law that would allow students to refinance that debt? The Senator Hansen's bill?
Yes, Steve, we've gone even further than that. I've rolled out a business package that would create a venture capital fund. People can voluntarily voluntarily invest in Wisconsin venture capital. Part of this business development fund to try to get us from 50th in the nation in new business startups to maybe first. Maybe we go from 50 to first. We create a venture capital fund. We refinance the student loans of anybody in this state that wants their student loans refinanced. And we offer to refinance the student loans of kids and young folks or anyone in other states, provided they agree to move to Wisconsin and bring their business ideas with them. We extend broadband across the state. You got to have. That's part of infrastructure in this century. We got to have broadband extended across the state. These are the types of things that we're talking about in terms of business development So yes, absolutely, positively, we want to refinance student loans because there's an entire generation of kids, of young folks, that are hamstrung. They're not able to participate in our economy like they could. So we can create, enormous new capital in our economy by refinancing these student loans. And why wouldn't they be refinanced? Student loans are non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. Once you take one, you got it forever. So what is the justification for the interest rates that are being charged? 8%, 11%? This is ridiculous.
What changes would a Governor Wachs seek to make in the tax codes?
Well, I am a firm believer in progressive taxes. And you look across the river in Minnesota, and I don't want to sound like Sarah Palin in any way, but if you look across the river, you can see prosperity. They've got billion-dollar surpluses and more sometimes, and they have a more progressive income tax structure than we do. They're able to invest in schools. They still have unions. They haven't attacked their unions over there. On average, Minnesota families make $8,000 more per year than Wisconsin families.
Household income?
That's right.
8,000 up. Okay. Would you seek to repeal the manufacturing and ag credit?
It depends. That's not a carte blanche yes or no, because there are some small farms that depend on that and small businesses that depend on it. But by and large, we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're not getting any verification of any new jobs that are being created. But we can't just carte blanche wipe it out, because that could have a terrible effect on some of the small businesses and small farms.
Okay, we're almost out of time. Just a couple more questions. Do you support UW system merging the 2-year colleges with the 4 years?
I think that there's still a lot of questions out on that. Number one, I'm not sure why more people weren't brought in to the discussions about that. I think we needed to bring all of the interested parties in to talk about just exactly what is the purpose of this merger. I'm still not clear on what the purpose of that merger is, and it came out of nowhere. And so I think before you make major steps like that, you need to bring the interested parties together.
The March Marquette poll, it rated 9 Democrats. You were tied with Mr. Mitchell with 7%. You disappointed at that number?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm very well known in the western part of the state, and we are working like mad. We've traveled 35,000 miles in my Jeep. I'm going to have to get a new Jeep when this is over. And we are picking up a lot of support. I mean, we had 100 people show up at a fundraiser in Kenosha the other day. We had 45 folks show up at a meet and greet the other day. We are picking up a lot of support, and I think that you're going to see a substantial move in the polls, and we are working our tail off, and we're going to win this thing.
Number 1 in the polls was Mr. Evers. Now, I think he had 20%. Why are you more qualified than someone who's won 3 statewide elections?
Here's what sets me different. I'm an advocate. For 32 years, I've been in the judicial system, being an advocate for regular folks. This is the time for an advocate in this state. Secondly, I'm going to be able to unite folks statewide. I've got very strong support in Milwaukee. I'm gaining a lot of support here in Madison. I'm gaining support in Green Bay, in the Fox River Valley, and I have a lot of support in northwestern Wisconsin. I understand people. I've spent my life representing people. And when you get down to Madison, you realize that some of the very same powerful special interest groups that I've been suing for 32 years in the courtroom are running this state, and they're running it into the ground. We need to be different. We need to have a politics that is absolutely set and resolute about helping people. That's what this government is for. It's to help regular folks, make their lives better. Those are Wisconsin values. If
you win the August primary, you'd be up against potentially Governor Walker raising $25, $28, maybe $30 million. Can you raise enough to be competitive?
Absolutely. I am absolutely convinced that I'll be able to raise money to be competitive, and I think I'm going to win. I think I'm the guy that can win in this election.
You're going to break out from the 10-plus candidates and win it in August?
I think so.
By virtue of your being finish it?
Well, I've been endorsed by David Obey. David Obey wouldn't. He endorsed me because he knows I'm a progressive. He endorsed me because he knows I'm a workaholic. I don't rest. I'm in this now, and I'm tenacious, and we're going to win it.
State Representative Dana Wachs, Democratic candidate for governor.
Thanks for
coming
having me,
in.
Steve.
Thank you.